The morning began like any other, quiet, slow, and peaceful. The kind of morning Lena had grown to appreciate after years of chaos in her family's orbit. Sunlight streamed through her kitchen window, casting warm patterns across the marble counter as the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. It was supposed to be a calm day until her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, expecting a message from her team or maybe a reminder for her afternoon meeting. Instead, she froze when she saw the sender's name. Evan, her older brother. They hadn't spoken in months. Not since their last strained phone call where his voice had dripped. With the same arrogance he'd carried since their teenage years. The message was short 5 words that sliced straight through her calm morning. Don't come to Mom's birthday, you'll ruin it. For a few seconds, Lena just stared, blinking at the screen as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less cruel. She read them again and again, her chest tightening. There was no context, no explanation, just the sharp finality of exclusion. Her first reaction wasn't anger, it was disbelief. Was this a joke? Evan had always been condescending, but to send something like this about their mother's birthday felt beyond even his usual arrogance. Lena checked the date. Yes, the birthday dinner was this weekend. She'd already bought a gift, a delicate silver locket engraved with her mother's initials. She had even taken time off work to drive down and surprise her. Now, she wasn't sure if she was even wanted, a knot formed in her throat as she sat down at the counter. She tried to reason with herself. Maybe Evan misunderstood something. Maybe her mom didn't even know about this message. But the blunt tone left little room for misinterpretation. You'll ruin it. The words echoed in her head, heavy and cruel. What had she done to ruin anything? Then came the sting of memory, the countless family gatherings where she'd been talked over, belittled, dismissed. The dinners where Evan and her father would mock her for thinking too big, for quitting the family business to play entrepreneur. They told her she'd regret it. They told her she wasn't practical, that she didn't have what it took to succeed without their name. Lena had spent years proving them wrong, though no one in her family seemed to notice or care. They never asked about her company, her team, or her accomplishments. She was always the one chasing silly dreams, while Evan was the successful one, running the family logistics firm. Her phone buzzed again, another message. This time from her mom. Honey, I heard from Evan. Maybe it's best if you skip this one. Things have been tense, and I don't want any drama. Please understand. That was it. No warmth, no reassurance, just quiet avoidance wrapped in politeness. Lena put the phone down slowly. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from rage but from something colder. Disappointment. Her mom wasn't defending her. She wasn't even asking for her side of the story. She was choosing peace over fairness. For a long time, Lena sat in silence, staring out the window at the world outside, a world she'd built for herself far away from the suffocating expectations of her family. She had built her own success, her own life, but in that moment she felt like the same unwanted daughter who'd once eaten dinner in silence while everyone else laughed around her. Her eyes drifted to the small gift box sitting on the counter, the locket she'd chosen so carefully. She ran her thumb across the ribbon, feeling a pang of sorrow. She'd imagined giving it to her mom in person, watching her eyes light up. Now it would probably just stay in the box, unopened. Lena took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and whispered to herself, Fine, if they don't want me there, I won't go. But beneath that calm acceptance burned something fierce, something stronger than anger. She wouldn't argue or beg for inclusion. She'd let them celebrate without her. Because one day soon, her absence would speak louder than her presence ever could. And when that day came, they would remember this message the moment they told her she'd ruin things, because it would be the last time they ever underestimated her. The words from Evan's text still echoed in Lena's mind long after the screen went dark. You'll ruin it. But to truly understand why those words cut so deeply, you'd have to go back to the years when family dinners were more like business meetings. And love always seemed conditional. Their family had built its fortune in logistics, a company that her grandfather started from a single delivery truck and grew into a regional empire. By the time Lena and Evan were old enough to understand, the business wasn't just part of their lives, it was their lives. Every conversation at the dinner table revolved around profits, partnerships, and reputation. Evan, the eldest, fit neatly into that world. He was confident, polished, and obedient to their father's vision. He knew how to say the right things and impress the right people. Their father, Thomas, adored him for it. He was the future of the company, the golden child who would carry the legacy forward. Lena, on the other hand, was the outlier. She loved the creative side of things, branding, design, strategy. She'd stay up late sketching ideas for modernizing the family logo or improving their customer experience. But her suggestions were always met with dismissive laughter. "That's cute, Lena," her father would say, not even looking up from his spreadsheet. "Leave the serious stuff to your brother." Even her mother, kind as she was, would just sigh gently and say, "Your father's just old-fashioned, sweetheart." Try not to take it personally. But Lena did take it personally. Every time her ideas were dismissed, every time Evan smirked across the table as if she didn't belong in the conversation, she felt it, that invisible wall keeping her outside the family circle of respect. After college, she joined the company hoping to prove herself. She threw herself into her work, proposing innovative marketing strategies that could have brought them into the digital age. But no matter how hard she tried, Evan and Thomas always found a way to discredit her ideas. "It's too risky. It's unnecessary. That's not how we do things." The final blow came during a quarterly meeting, one she'd been preparing for over a month. She presented a full campaign plan, something that could have expanded their reach into new markets. But halfway through, Evan interrupted her in front of everyone. "This isn't a college project, Lena," he said, smirking. "We're running a real company here." The room went silent. Their father didn't defend her. He just chuckled and said, "He's right, Lena. You're too idealistic. Maybe stick to the creative department if you want to play around with ideas." That was the moment something inside her snapped. She gathered her notes, stood up and said, "If being creative means not being taken seriously here, then I'm done." Then she walked out of the meeting, out of the building, and as it turned out, out of the family business for good. For months afterward, the family barely spoke to her. Her father called her decision immature. Evan told people she'd quit when things got hard. And her mother, torn between them, kept trying to smooth things over. Though her efforts only made things worse. Lena struggled at first, financially, emotionally, everything. But she refused to crawl back. Instead, she started small, freelancing, then consulting, then slowly building her own company from the ground up. Every late night, every setback, every doubt fueled her determination. Still, deep down, she always hoped that one day her family might see her for who she truly was, not the girl who walked away, but the woman who built something on her own. Yet here she was, years later, still being treated like a disruption. An outsider who could ruin her mother's birthday simply by showing up. Evan's text wasn't just an insult. It was a reminder that no matter how much she achieved, in their eyes, she'd never belong. But Lena didn't know yet that this wound, this rejection, would become the very spark that turned her quiet resilience into unstoppable strength. After the shock of Evan's message had worn off, Lena did what she always did when something didn't make sense. She sought the truth directly. There was only one person whose words still mattered to her in that house, her mother's. She sat on the couch, phone clutched tightly in her hand, debating whether to call. Maybe her mom didn't even know what Evan had said. Maybe this was just another one of his power plays, the kind he'd perfected over the years. Lena wasn't going to let him win without at least hearing her. Mother sighed. She took a deep breath and hit call. The phone rang longer than usual. When her mom finally answered, her voice was soft, almost too soft. "Lena?" "Hi, sweetheart." "Hi, Mom." Lena tried to sound casual, but the tremor in her voice gave her away. "I just got a text from Evan about your birthday." A long pause followed, the kind of pause that told you the answer before the words did. "Oh," her mother finally said. Yes, he mentioned that. Lena's chest tightened. So you know about it? I do, her mom replied hesitantly. Honey, it's just things have been tense lately. You know how your brother gets when there's tension at family gatherings? Tension? Lena repeated, her voice rising slightly. Mom, I haven't spoken to anyone in months. How exactly am I causing tension? There was another silence, heavier this time, like her mother was choosing her words carefully. Evan just wants everything to go smoothly. It's your birthday too, in a way, but he thought that I'd ruin it, Lena finished for her. Yeah, I got the message loud and clear. Her mom sighed softly. Sweetheart, don't take it that way. You know how your brother is. He means well, he just means well? Lena cut in, disbelief washing over her. He's telling your own daughter not to come to your birthday, and you're okay with that? Please don't make this harder, her mom said, her voice barely above a whisper. I just want everyone to get along for one night. It's been a stressful year, and I don't want drama. Lena felt something inside her deflate, a mix of exhaustion and quiet heartbreak. So I'm the drama now? She said more to herself than to her mother, Lena. Her mom began softly, but the words trailed off. It's fine, Lena interrupted, her tone suddenly calm. Too calm. If that's what you want, Mom, I'll stay away. I'm sorry, sweetheart, her mom murmured. I really am. When the call ended, Lena just sat there for a long time, staring at her reflection in the darkened phone screen. Her mother's voice still echoed in her head, the apology that wasn't quite an apology, the love that came wrapped in avoidance. She wasn't angry at her mother, not really. She understood her, maybe too well. Her mom had always been the peacekeeper, the one who smoothed things over and kept the family together. But peacekeeping often meant silence, and silence had its own cruelty. Growing up, Lena had watched her mother stay quiet through countless arguments, when her father dismissed Lena's ideas, when Evan mocked her ambitions, when she cried after being told she'd never fit into the business world. Her mom's comfort had always come later, in private, whispered behind closed doors. You know, your father didn't mean it that way. Evan's just under a lot of pressure. You're strong, honey. You'll show them one day. But now, when that one day had finally come, when Lena had truly shown them, her mother was still choosing silence. It wasn't anger that settled in Lena's chest as she set the phone down. It was clarity. She realized that she had spent years seeking approval from a family that only valued control. Her mother's silence wasn't just about a birthday party. It was about a lifetime of standing quietly beside the louder voices. And Lena, for the first time, decided she wouldn't do the same. She looked around her apartment. At the framed certificate from her company's first major award, the photo of her small but loyal team, the vision board tacked above her desk. These things were hers. Earned, built, and fought for without anyone's permission. So no, she wouldn't beg for a seat at their table anymore. Let them celebrate their version of family. She had her own definition now, one that didn't require silence to keep the peace. Still, as night fell and the house grew quiet, Lena couldn't help but feel the ache of her mother's absence, not physical, but emotional. The ache of being loved, but not defended. And deep down, she made a promise to herself. One day, Mom will see me, not as a problem to avoid, but as the daughter she should have been proud to stand beside. For the next few days, Lena tried to shake it off, the sting of exclusion, the disappointment in her mother's voice, the bitterness of feeling like a guest in her own family. But no matter how many times she replayed the conversation in her head, one truth remained uncheckable. They didn't believe in her. And maybe, just maybe, that was fine. On Monday morning, she woke up before dawn, long before the city began to stir. The air was cool and still, the sky a soft gray. She brewed her coffee, tied her hair back, and sat down at her desk, a simple wooden one she'd bought secondhand when she first started her company, Arkline Strategies, 3 years ago. Back then, it had been nothing more than an idea, a spark born out of defiance. She'd left the family company with no savings, no safety net, and a long list of people who expected her to fail. But what she did have was clarity. She knew how to build things, not with money but with vision. At first, Arkline was just her and a laptop. She worked from coffee shops, pitching ideas to small local brands that couldn't afford traditional marketing agencies. She designed campaigns that told stories, human emotional stories, instead of sterile corporate pitches. People connected with that. Slowly, word spread. Now 3 years later, she had a small team, 5 people who believed in her, who called her boss with respect rather than mockery. Her company was growing faster than she ever expected, and though she wasn't rich yet, she was stable, self-made, independent, and proud of it. Still, as she sat down to review client reports, her brother's message lingered in her mind. "You'll ruin it." It replayed like a taunt, but not in the way he intended. Every time she heard it in her mind, it pushed her forward, a reminder of why she worked so hard in the first place. At 8 a.m., her phone buzzed, this time with a message from her operations manager. "Mia, client loved your pitch deck, Lena. Said they're ready to move forward on the expansion plan." Lena smiled for the first time in days. That expansion plan had taken weeks to perfect. It was risky, ambitious, the kind of bold move her father would have laughed off as too emotional. But it worked. It was working. By lunchtime, she was deep in back-to-back meetings, her focus razor-sharp. The world outside her family didn't care about old grudges or childhood labels. Out here, she wasn't the difficult one or the dreamer. She was simply the one who delivered results. When the clock hit 5, she leaned back in her chair and looked at the city skyline from her office window. The sunset painted everything gold and pink, a quiet kind of beauty, the kind that didn't need anyone's approval to exist. Her gaze fell to a framed photo on her shelf, a younger version of herself at her college graduation, standing alone, cap slightly crooked, eyes shining with hope. She remembered that day vividly. Her father hadn't come. Evan had been busy, and her mother had sent flowers with a note that said, "We're proud of you, sweetheart." Proud, but never present. Now, Lena realized something powerful. She didn't need their presence to validate her success. The best revenge wasn't confrontation or shouting matches. It was thriving quietly, confidently, without needing to prove anything. She took a deep breath and opened a new email draft, the one she'd been waiting for the right moment to send. It was to a global marketing firm, the kind that could take Arkline from regional success to national recognition. She'd hesitated before, thinking she wasn't ready. Now, she clicked send. As the message whooshed away, Lena felt a rush of certainty, a spark of something bigger than pride. Let Evan have his fancy birthday dinner. Let her mom stay silent. Let them all believe she was still the same girl who walked away. Because soon they'd see. Not through words, not through confrontation, but through undeniable, unignorable success. And when that day came, she wouldn't need an invitation to prove she belonged, because her achievements would do all the talking. By the time Saturday arrived, the day of her mother's birthday, Lena had convinced herself she wouldn't think about it. She buried herself in work, scheduling extra client calls and reviewing proposals that could have easily waited until Monday. But no matter how many tasks she piled onto her to-do list, her thoughts kept circling back to one simple truth. Today, they were all together without her. Her mother's birthday had always been a big deal. Every year, the family went all-out lavish dinners, a perfectly coordinated guest list, champagne, speeches. Her father used to joke that it wasn't a party until it looked like a business event. Even after he passed, Evan had carried on that same tradition, turning their mother's birthday into a kind of social spectacle. Lena used to love those nights when she was little. She'd sit beside her mother in the kitchen as she baked her favorite lemon chiffon cake, stealing bits of frosting when no one was looking. It used to be their thing, their quiet ritual before the noise began. But that was years ago, back when family still felt like home, not politics. By evening, the ache she'd been holding down all week began to rise again. She made tea, wrapped herself in a blanket, and tried not to look at her phone. But curiosity was stronger than resolve. When the first picture popped up on social media, she couldn't stop herself from scrolling. Her cousin had posted a photo. The dining room was draped in gold and cream, the table glittering with crystal glasses and fine china. Her mother sat at the center, glowing in a soft blue dress, her smile gentle but tired. Evan stood beside her, hand on her shoulder. Grinning proudly, the caption read, "Happy birthday to the most wonderful aunt and the heart of our family. So blessed to celebrate with everyone tonight." Lena's thumb hovered over the screen. Everyone. That word hit harder than it should have. Everyone was there, her cousins, uncles, family friends. Everyone but her. More photos followed, Evan giving a toast. The family clapping, her mother laughing with a glass of wine in her hand. The kind of pictures that made it look like a perfect night, free of tension, free of missing pieces. And yet, as Lena looked closer at one of the pictures, she noticed something that made her chest ache. Her mother wasn't looking at Evan or the guests. Her eyes were turned slightly to the side, unfocused, almost wistful, like she was thinking of someone who wasn't there. For a moment, Lena let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, her mom missed her too. She set her phone aside and opened her laptop. If she couldn't be part of that world, she'd pour her energy into the one she'd built herself. There, she was valued. There, her absence was noticed. That night, her inbox held an email from a corporate partner she'd been courting for months, a major international retailer interested in a branding collaboration. Her heart skipped when she read the subject line, "Proposal approved. Let's discuss next steps." Her pulse quickened. This was it, the kind of deal that could elevate Arkline from small business to serious contender. She reread the email 3 times, barely believing it. Then, for the first time that night, she smiled. It was poetic, almost cinematic. While her family was raising glasses at a dinner she wasn't welcome at, she was quietly crossing a milestone that would change her life. She thought about texting her mom to share the news, but stopped. It wasn't bitterness that stopped her this time, but understanding. Her mom wouldn't know how to react. Pride and guilt were tangled too tightly together in that house. Instead, Lena whispered softly to herself, "Happy birthday, Mom?" Then she closed her laptop, looked out the window at the city lights, and let the quiet satisfaction wash over her. She wasn't at the dinner table, but she didn't need to be, because while they toasted to appearances, Lena had something far better than approval or invitation. She had proof. Proof that walking away hadn't ruined her life, it had made it. And soon, the whole world was going to see exactly who they had underestimated. Monday morning dawned like any other until Lena's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. At first, she thought it was her team sending updates about the new partnership announcement. But when she reached for her phone and saw dozens of notifications, texts, mentions, even LinkedIn tags, her heart started racing. Something big had happened. The first message she opened was from her friend and business mentor, Clara. "Lena, you're on the cover of Business Weekly. Front page." They finally did the feature. Lena blinked, half convinced she'd misread it. She'd done an interview with the magazine 2 months ago, one of those emerging entrepreneur profiles that the editor said might or might not make print. She hadn't thought much of it afterward. Things like that often went nowhere, but then she opened the link Clara sent. And there it was. Her photo, confident, professional, and radiant, filled the top half of the front page. The headline read, "From Family Outcast to Industry Leader, How Lena Halle Built Arkline Strategies from Scratch." For a moment she just stared at the words. Her breath caught somewhere between disbelief and awe. The article began with her story, how she'd left a secure family business to chase an independent dream. It spoke about her early struggles, the setbacks, and the nights she worked alone from her apartment kitchen with little more than determination and a laptop. But what struck her most was the line near the end. Sometimes, walking away from legacy isn't rebellion, it's survival. And in Lena Hale's case, it's transformation. She felt her throat tighten. No one had ever captured it so perfectly, the difference between leaving and escaping. Within an hour, her inbox filled with new inquiries, potential clients, investors, even media requests for follow-up interviews. Her company's website traffic tripled. Her team group chat exploded with messages of celebration. Mia, her operations manager, sent a selfie holding the magazine with a grinning caption, "Boss, we made it. You're officially a big deal." Lena laughed out loud for the first time in days. She walked to her office window, sunlight pouring in, and just stood there for a moment, breathing it in. The success, the validation, the quiet sense of justice, because somewhere deep down, she knew this was more than just a professional win. This was symbolic. While her family had celebrated a weekend of exclusion, she had built something worth celebrating on her own. The timing was poetic, almost faded. Out of curiosity, she typed her name into Google. The article was already trending. People were sharing it on social media with hashtags like #WomenInBusiness and #Defying the Odds. Her notifications kept buzzing, some familiar names, others complete strangers, all congratulating her. Then she saw a text from a number she hadn't seen in years. Her cousin, Melissa? Just saw the article? Oh my God, Lena, you're incredible. The whole family's talking about it. Lena froze. The whole family, that phrase sent a ripple of unease through her excitement. She hadn't mentioned her family's name in the piece, made sure of that. Every success, every quote, every story was hers alone. Still, she knew exactly how people back home would take it, and she was right. An hour later, her mother called. Lena hesitated before answering. The last time they'd spoken, her mom's voice had been cautious and quiet. This time it was trembling. "Sweetheart," her mother began, "I just saw the magazine. I didn't know they were doing that story. You look so beautiful. I'm so proud of you." Lena smiled faintly. "Thanks, Mom." There was a pause, the kind filled with words unsaid. Then her mother added softly, "Evan's seen it too." Of course he had. Lena didn't ask how he reacted. She didn't need to. She could already imagine the tension in his jaw. The way he'd skimmed the article searching for a reason to dismiss it, but there was no dismissal this time, no spin. No way to twist the story into something small, because the truth was in print now. Bold and undeniable. For years, they'd told her she'd never make it on her own. And now, her name was on the cover of a national magazine. Attached to words like leader, visionary, and trailblazer, Lena closed her eyes and exhaled. For the first time in her life, she didn't need to defend her choices. The world had already done it for her. And she couldn't help but think this was the kind of moment worth celebrating. Not with champagne or speeches or family approval. Just quiet triumph, a triumph that spoke louder than any invitation ever could. Lena didn't have to wait long to see the ripple effects of her magazine feature. It was everywhere, not just online, but in print, in offices, on coffee tables, in the same social circles her family had always dominated. Her face was impossible to ignore now, and that meant neither was her story. By Tuesday morning, she could already feel the shift in the air. A few of her cousins started following her company's page on LinkedIn, people who hadn't liked or commented on a single thing she'd posted in years. Her aunt even sent her a short but telling message, "So proud of you, dear. You've really made something of yourself." It was a compliment disguised as surprise, but Lena didn't mind. She'd stopped expecting genuine warmth from that side of the family a long time ago. Still, part of her couldn't help but wonder what was happening inside that house. The house where her name had always been said in hushed tones, usually followed by sighs or the words, "You know how she is?" Her curiosity was answered that evening when her old friend, one who still kept in touch with her brother's circle, sent a message that made her laugh out loud. "Evan's furious. He's been ranting about the article all day. Says you're trying to use the family name to boost your business." Lena rolled her eyes. Of course he'd say that. The irony was almost comical. She'd built Arcline without a single dime, contact, or favor from the family business. The article hadn't even mentioned their company. Still, she could picture him clearly, pacing in his office, fuming that her name was now in headlines while his remained buried in company reports. Evan had always defined himself by being the successful one. The idea that his little sister, the one who didn't understand business, was now being celebrated publicly must have felt like a personal insult, but underneath her amusement was something softer, a faint ache, because while she didn't need their approval, she couldn't deny that part of her had once wanted it. That evening, her phone buzzed again. A message from her mother. "Your article was beautiful, sweetheart. I'm showing it to everyone. Your father would have been so proud. Lena stared at the text, her throat tightening. It was the kind of message she'd always dreamed of getting, one filled with pride instead of apology. But the timing was bittersweet. Why did it take public recognition for her mom to finally see her? She typed back slowly. Thanks, Mom. That means a lot. Then, before she could stop herself, she added, I wish you'd said that years ago. Her mother didn't reply right away. Hours passed before a small bubble appeared on the screen. Then finally, a simple answer came, I know. That night, Lena lay awake, the glow from her phone lighting up the dark. She wasn't angry anymore, just strangely at peace. The family that had excluded her from a birthday dinner was now watching her name circulate on national platforms. The same people who once dismissed her ideas were now whispering her success story at their own tables. She didn't need to defend herself, explain herself, or even confront them. The narrative had already flipped, and she hadn't lifted a finger for years. They'd called her reckless, emotional, impossible. But now the world called her something else entirely, visionary. And Evan, for all his bluster and denial, couldn't silence that truth, because while he'd been busy protecting his place in a legacy built by others, Lena had quietly built one of her own, a legacy that didn't rely on their approval, their connections, or their name. It was poetic justice, not loud or vengeful, but graceful and inevitable. And as Lena drifted off to sleep that night, one thought lingered in her mind like a soft echo. They had excluded her to preserve their pride. But in doing so, they had given her something far more powerful, freedom. It was late evening when Lena's phone rang again. She almost didn't answer. She'd spent the entire day juggling media calls, new clients, and congratulatory messages. Her mind was buzzing with momentum, her schedule filled for weeks ahead. For once, she felt completely in control, but when she saw the name on the screen, Mom, her hand froze mid-air. She hesitated before answering, bracing herself for another half-hearted compliment or worse, another guilt-laced plea to keep the peace. Instead, when she picked up, she was met with a silence so heavy it almost crackled through the line. Mom? Lena said softly. Her mother's voice trembled. Lena, hi, I've been trying to find the right words all day. Lena's chest tightened. There was something in her mother's tone, raw, emotional, that she hadn't heard in years. I saw the magazine, her mom continued. Your article? I must have read it 10 times. You look so confident, so happy. Her voice broke, and Lena heard the faint sound of a sniffle. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Those words, I'm sorry, landed heavier than anything else could have. For what? Lena asked quietly, though she already knew. For not standing up for you, her mother said, her voice small and tired. For letting your brother decide who belongs and who doesn't. For not calling you that night when he told you not to come. I should have told him no. I should have told him it wasn't his decision to make. Lena's throat tightened. For a moment, she didn't trust herself to speak. Her mother continued, her words tumbling out in uneven breaths. You know, when I saw the pictures from the party, everyone was laughing, smiling, acting like everything was perfect. But I couldn't stop thinking about you. I kept glancing at the door, half expecting you to walk in. It didn't feel right without you there. A tear slipped down Lena's cheek before she realized she was crying. She didn't sob. It was quieter than that. A slow release of something she'd been holding in for years. Mom, she whispered. I didn't want to make things hard for you. Her mother let out a soft laugh that was more pain than humor. You didn't. I made things hard for myself. I kept thinking if I just stayed quiet, you two would find your way back to each other. But silence doesn't fix anything. It just hides the cracks until everything falls apart. Lena leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes. I know why you did it, she said gently. You've always tried to keep the peace. You just didn't realize how much it cost. There was a pause, a long, fragile kind of silence, and then her mother spoke again. When I read that line in the article about walking away from legacy not being rebellion but survival, I realized that's exactly what you did. You survived us? Lena's lips trembled into a small, bittersweet smile. I didn't want to just survive, Mom. I wanted to belong. I know, her mom said softly. And I should have made sure you did. They talked for a long time after that, longer than they had in years. Her mother asked about the company, about her team, about what was next. Lena could hear genuine pride in her voice, untainted by guilt or comparison. It was the kind of conversation they should have had long ago, one built on honesty instead of avoidance. Before hanging up, her mother said quietly, "There's going to be a family dinner next month. Just something small. I want you to come, not because of the article, not because anyone told me to invite you, because I want you there." Lena's heart swelled, cautious but hopeful. "I'll think about it," she said softly. "Fair enough," her mother replied, a small smile audible through her tone. "Just know the door's open. This time it's my decision." After the call ended, Lena sat in silence, staring out the window at the city lights. The ache in her chest had eased, replaced by something gentler, forgiveness, maybe, or the first flicker of healing. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like an outsider looking in. She felt seen, not because of her success, or the magazine, or the recognition, but because her mother had finally spoken the words Lena had needed to hear all along. "I'm sorry. And I'm proud of you." Months passed since the magazine feature, and life for Lena continued to accelerate. Her company, Arcline Strategies, was thriving, and she had barely a moment to think about the past until an unexpected invitation arrived. It was an elegantly handwritten card from her mother. "Dear Lena, I'd love for you to join us for a small family gathering next weekend. No obligations, no speeches, just us. Love, Mom." Lena stared at the card for several minutes. Her mother's handwriting, neat and flowing, seemed to carry the weight of every unspoken apology, every quiet regret, every family dinner she had missed. For the first time, the invitation felt different, not about obligation or politeness, but genuine desire. When she arrived at the family home the following Saturday, Lena felt a strange mixture of anticipation and calm. She wasn't nervous, not really. She had been underestimated for years, dismissed for her ambitions, excluded from celebrations she had every right to attend. And yet, as she parked her car and walked toward the front door, she felt no need for confrontation. No need to prove herself with words. Her achievements had already done that. The door opened to reveal her mother, smiling warmly, arms wide. "Lena!" she exclaimed, pulling her into a gentle hug. It was the first time in years that Lena felt the embrace wasn't half-hearted or distracted. Her mother's eyes glistened, and for a brief moment, Lena saw the woman who had always silently loved her even when she had failed to intervene. Inside, the house was familiar yet transformed, cozy, intimate, without the pomp and spectacle of past gatherings. The small group of family members greeted Lena with polite nods and quiet smiles. Some glanced at her with a flicker of awe, undoubtedly recalling the magazine cover, while others simply welcomed her presence without comment. And then there was Evan. He stood near the kitchen, drink in hand, face unreadable. Lena could feel his gaze, sharp and calculating, likely measuring how she had changed. But she didn't flinch. She didn't approach with anger or sarcasm. She simply smiled politely, nodded in greeting, and found her place beside her mother. Throughout the evening, conversations flowed, some awkwardly, some warmly. Lena shared updates about her business in a composed, understated way. She didn't boast. She didn't gloat. Her success was apparent, but it spoke for itself, shining quietly in her confidence. Her calm demeanor, the assured way she engaged with everyone. Evan, for his part, couldn't mask his surprise. He made a few attempts to assert control over the conversation, to remind everyone of his role, but each attempt was subtly countered by Lena's poised presence. She had not changed outwardly, but the aura of someone who had fought, built, and won on her own was unmistakable. Later, during dessert, her mother leaned over and whispered, "I'm so proud of you, Lena. You didn't need to fight to be seen. You just had to be you." Lena felt a warmth in her chest, a quiet satisfaction deeper than any triumph she had achieved in business. This wasn't about proving Evan wrong. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about being recognized on her own terms, finally belonging without compromise. By the time the evening drew to a close, Lena realized that her presence had shifted the atmosphere subtly but irrevocably. The family who had once excluded her could no longer view her as the powerless sister. She had arrived not to claim her place but to show them that she had always belonged, in her own right. When she hugged her mother goodnight, she felt the weight of years lift slightly. No words were needed for Evan. He had seen enough. And as Lena stepped out into the night, the cool air brushing her face, she felt a profound clarity. Success had done what confrontation never could. It had spoken louder than any argument, louder than any resentment, louder even than their words of exclusion. She hadn't ruined anything. She had simply become undeniable. And now, everyone could see it. The night air was cool as Lena walked to her car, the lights of the city twinkling faintly in the distance. The family gathering had ended, but the echoes of the evening lingered with her. She had arrived quietly, spoken lightly, and left without ceremony, yet her presence had shifted the energy of the room. She thought about Evan, standing there in his carefully maintained composure, trying to reclaim authority, only to be subtly overshadowed by the calm confidence she exuded. Lena didn't need to gloat. She didn't need to demand recognition. Her achievements had already done the talking, louder than any argument or confrontation ever could for years. She had carried the sting of exclusion, being told she would ruin her mother's birthday, dismissed by her father, mocked by her brother. Yet all that rejection, all that doubt, had fueled her determination. Every sleepless night, every risk she had taken, every small victory had built something enduring, a life, a business, a legacy entirely of her own making. As she settled into her car, she thought about the magazine feature that had sparked the ripple effect of recognition. The articles, the client calls, the messages from distant family members, none of it would have existed if she had allowed bitterness or anger to dictate her actions. She had chosen focus, resilience, and quiet determination. And now, at last, her family had to reckon with it. They could no longer ignore her accomplishments, dismiss her ideas, or belittle her ambitions. She didn't need to confront them or prove herself verbally. Her success had done it for her. Her mother's whispered words during the gathering echoed in her mind. You didn't need to fight to be seen, you just had to be you. For Lena, that realization carried more weight than any victory in business. It wasn't just about professional success. It was about reclaiming her place in her family. On her own terms. Evan had always tried to define her, to box her into the narrative of the rebellious, emotional sister who could never succeed without his guidance. But tonight, she had demonstrated that narrative was wrong, quietly, gracefully, and irrevocably. As she drove home, Lena felt a sense of freedom she had never known before. She didn't need validation from her brother or her father. Her mother's eventual recognition, tempered with genuine pride, was enough. And more importantly, she no longer sought approval. She had built her life and her legacy independently. That night, Lena realized something profound. Success, when earned with integrity and perseverance, speaks louder than words. It doesn't need to be shouted. It doesn't need to be displayed for envy or vengeance. It simply exists, undeniable and transformative, reshaping perceptions and expectations without effort or confrontation. By the time she parked in her driveway, she felt an unshakable peace. She had achieved something greater than recognition or inclusion. She had achieved self-respect, resilience, and the quiet power that comes from living life on one's own terms. And she knew that the memory of being told she would ruin her mother's birthday would fade into irrelevance. It no longer defined her. She had already let her actions, her determination, and her success speak for themselves. For Lena, the story had come full circle. Once excluded, once underestimated, she had become undeniable. And in that quiet triumph, she understood something essential. The most powerful victories are those that don't need to be explained, defended, or justified. They are simply lived and inevitably seen by those who once doubted you. As she turned off the lights and closed the door behind her, Lena smiled to herself. She hadn't ruined anything, nor had she needed to. She had simply risen, and in doing so let the truth of her strength and worth shine on its own. Her success had spoken, and it had said everything.